I'm going to begin the service today with Shobogenzo Genjo Koan, The Way of Everyday Life by Ihai Dogen. Should be a copy inside your chant book. When all dharmas are Buddha Dharma, there are enlightenment and delusion, practice life and death, Buddhas and creatures. When the 10,000 dharmas are without self, there are no delusions, no enlightenment, no Buddha, no creatures, no life, and no death. The Buddha way transcends being and non-being. Therefore, there are life and death, delusion and enlightenment, creatures and Buddhas. Nevertheless, flowers fall with our attachment, and weeds spring up with our aversion. To carry the self forward and realize the 10,000 dharmas is delusion. That the 10,000 dharmas advance and realize the self is enlightenment. It is Buddhas who enlighten delusion. It is creatures who are deluded in enlightenment. Further, there are those who attain enlightenment above enlightenment, and there are those who are deluded within delusion. When Buddhas are truly Buddhas, one need not be aware of being Buddha. However, when one is the realized Buddha and further advances in realizing Buddha, seeing forms with the whole body and mind, hearing sound with the whole body and mind, one understands them intimately. Yet it is not like a mirror with reflections, nor like water under the moon. When one side is realized, the other side is dark. To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by the 10,000 dharmas. To be enlightened by the 10,000 dharmas is to be free one's body and mind and those of others. No trace of enlightenment remains, and this traceless enlightenment is continued forever. When one first seeks the truth, one separates oneself from it. When one has already correctly transmitted the truth to oneself, one is one's original self at that moment. When riding on a boat, if one watches the shore, one may assume that the shore is moving. But watching the boat directly, one knows that it's the boat that moves. If one examines the 10,000 dharmas with a deluded body and mind, one will suppose that one's mind and nature are permanent. But if one practices them intimately and returns to the true self, it will be clear that the 10,000 dharmas are without self. Firewood turns into ash and does not turn into firewood again, but do not suppose that ash is after and the firewood is before. We must realize that firewood is in the state of being firewood and has its before and after, yet having this before and after is independent of them. Ash is in the state of being ash and has its before and after. Just as firewood does not become firewood again after it is ash, so after one's death, one does not return to life again. Thus, that life does not become death is a confirmed teaching of the Buddha Dharma. For this reason, the life is called the non-born. That death did not become life is a confirmed teaching of the Buddha Dharma. Therefore, death is called the non-extinguished. Life is a period of itself. Death is a period of itself. For example, they are like winter and spring. We do not think that winter becomes spring, nor do we think that spring becomes summer. Gaining enlightenment is like the moon reflecting in the water. The moon does not get wet, nor is the water disturbed. Although its light is extensive and great, the moon is reflected even in a puddle an inch across. The whole moon and the whole sky are reflected in a dewdrop in the grass and one drop of water. Enlightenment does not disturb the person, just as the moon does not disturb the water. A person does not hinder enlightenment, just as a dewdrop does not hinder the moon in the sky. The depth of the drop is the height of the moon. As for the duration of the reflection, you should examine the water's vastness or smallness. You should discern the brightness of dimness or the heavenly of the moon. When the truth does not fill our body and mind, we think that we have enough. When the truth fills our body and mind, we realize that something is missing. For example, when we view the four directions from a boat on the ocean where no land is in sight, we see that only a circle and nothing else. No other aspects are apparent. However, this ocean is neither round nor square, and its qualities are infinite in variety. It is like a palace. It is like a jewel. It seems circular as far as our eyes can reach at the time. The 10,000 dharmas are likewise like this. Although ordinary life and enlightened life assumes many aspects, we only recognize and understand through practice what the penetrating power of our vision can reach. In order to appreciate the 10,000 dharmas, we should know that although they may look round or square, the other qualities of oceans and mountains are infinite in variety. Furthermore, other universes lie in all quarters. It is so not only around ourselves, but also right here and in a single drop of water. When a fish swims in the ocean, there is no limit to the water, no matter how far it swims. When a bird flies in the sky, there is no limit to the sky, no matter how far it flies. However, no fish or bird has ever left its element since the beginning. When the need is large, it is used largely. When the need is small, it is used small way. Thus, no creature ever comes short of its own completeness. Wherever it stands, it does not fail to cover the ground. If a bird leaves the air, it will die at once. If a fish leaves the water, it will die at once. Know then that the water is life. Know that air is life. Life is the bird and life is the fish. Beyond these, there are further implications and ramifications. In this way, there are practice and enlightenment, mortality and immortality. Now, if a bird or a fish tries to reach the limit of its element before moving in it, this bird or this fish will not find its way or its place. Attaining this place, one's daily life is a realization of ultimate reality, Genjo Koen. Attaining this way, one's daily life is the realization of ultimate reality, Genjo Koen. Since this place and this way are neither large nor small, neither self nor other, neither existing previously nor arising now, they therefore exist thus. Thus, if one practices and realizes the Buddha way, when one gains one Dharma, one penetrates one Dharma. When one encounters one action, one practices one action. Since the place is here and the way leads everywhere, the reason the limits of the knowable or unknowable is simply that our knowledge arises with and practices with the absolute perfection of the Buddha Dharma. Do not practice thinking that realization must become the object of one's knowledge and vision and be grasped conceptually. Even though the attainment of realization is immediately manifest, its intimate nature is not necessarily realized. Some may realize it and some may not. Priest Biochi of Magu Mountain was fanning himself. A monk approached and asked, "Sir, the nature of the wind is permanent and there is no place it does not reach. Why then must you still fan yourself?" "Although you understand the nature of wind is permanent," the master replied, "you do not understand the meaning of its reaching everywhere." "What is the meaning of its reaching everywhere?" asked the monk. The master just fanned himself. The monk bowed with deep respect. This is the enlightenment experience of Buddha Dharma and the vital way of its correct transmission. Those who say we should not use a fan because wind is permanent and so we should know the existence of wind without using a fan know neither permanency nor the nature of wind. Because the nature of wind is eternally present, the wind of Buddhism actualizes the gold of the earth and ripens the cheese of the long river. We will now resume noble silence. If you would all turn to the inside of your chant book, there's the incense offering that we'll chant together. Should be an insert, like a separate page. In gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Good morning. Nice to see you all here today. My name is Kunga Nyima. I'm one of the teachers here at the temple. Give a few of the courtesy announcements here. If you need to take a break during the service, we ask that you please walk along the back. And there's stairs going downstairs. There's bathrooms and water downstairs. There's also bathrooms up here through the curtains. We have chairs available. If you get uncomfortable sitting on a cushion, feel free to get up to get onto a chair anytime you need that. We invite you to chant with us. We'll let you know where the chants are in the chant book and encourage you to chant loud enough that you can hear yourself, but not so loud that you can't hear your fellow chanters, so that we can all chant mindfully together. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to stand up and greet each other silently with bows. We will start with the chanting of the prerequisites in page 7 of your chant book. I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of the mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion, and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, and to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. Turn over to page 8. We will chant the Heart Sutra together, beginning with the title. Dhamma Prajna Parita Vinaya Sutra. Bodhisattva of great compassion, from the deep practice of prajna, paramita, perceive the emptiness of all 5 skandhas, and deliver all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness,
Emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance. No old age and death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering. No cease from suffering. No path to lead out of suffering. No knowledge, no attainment, no realization. For there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharma, the radiant, fearless mantra. The utmost supreme mantra, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Grate, grate, para, grate. Arasamgate, Bodhisattva. Gate, gate, aragate, arasamgate, Bodhisattva. Gate, gate, aragate, arasamgate, Bodhisattva. Prajna, Paramita, Vedaya, Sutra.
Morning again. The title of my talk today is Wearing Sandals, The Wisdom of the Bodhisattva Way. So the title comes from A Guide to the Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva. The monk, I want to talk a little bit about Shantideva, just to give you some context for this talk. So Shantideva was a student at Nalanda University in India in the 8th century. His fellow students did not think he was a very good student. They didn't feel like he was attending meditation as he's supposed to, coming to classes regularly, and they felt like that maybe he needed a lesson in humility. So his fellow monks arranged for him to give a talk to the entire assembly of monks and teachers. And they thought that maybe this would help him to realize that he needed to get more serious about his studies. It would embarrass him. So they set up a tall chair, like with a ladder up to it, so that he could give a speech that everyone could hear. But then his fellow monks who were angry with him hid the ladder, so he would be, embarrassed when he got up there, not be able to get up there. But miraculously, without any assistance, Shantideva was able to ascend the high tower easily. And then once up there, he asked his fellow monks if they want to hear a teaching that they've heard before, a new teaching. And they said they wanted to hear a new teaching. So then, without any notes, he teaches a guide to the way of the Bodhisattva, which is what the verses that I'm going to be talking about today were drawn from. This is a text that our Bodhisattva students use to study for the Bodhisattva class. Bodhisattva student just graduated last month. So, and there was a handout at the front, so you all should have a copy of the verses that I'll be talking about. And the title of the talk comes from the first verse. To cover all the earth with sheets of hide, where could such amounts of skin be found? But simply wrap some leather around your feet, and as if the whole earth has been covered. So this is I think a pretty well-known verse, though I don't think a lot of people know that this is where it comes from. And so it's a very simple idea. The world is full of pain and suffering. This is the first noble truth, the truth of suffering. We have suffering. There's pain and suffering during our birth. There's pain and suffering as we get old, pain and suffering when we get sick, and pain and suffering when we die, physical and psychological pain. So there's no way to completely cover the earth, to cover up all those things of life. There's no way to be born without the discomfort and get sick without those discomfort. So Shantideva's advice is to, rather than try and cover the entire world with leather or rubber, is that we should put some shoes on, right? Pretty simple. Just put some shoes on, then everything will be covered. So the shoes that he's talking about is the mind training that he teaches about in the way of the Bodhisattva. And we can think of mind training as when we're bringing our mindfulness to our meditation cushion, to our prostrations, to our chanting, but also just to our normal everyday life, when we're at work or when we're at school or when we're at home. When we're bringing mindfulness to the moment, this is training our mind. So today I want to talk about the portion of mind training that he talks about specifically to do with anger. The Guide to the Bodhisattva is a very comprehensive text. There's lots of different things covered in, so I'm just covering a little small part. And this is my interpretation of what Shantideva has to say about anger and how we should deal with anger. I thought this was a good topic, at this current time, with politics coming up. It's easy for us to get angry at people who don't have the same political views as we do. And so Shantideva has some specific guidelines to us, that we can follow in our everyday life. Even though he's talking about, from the 8th century, we can still find value in these teachings today. So the first example, I am not angry with my bile and other humors, fertile source of pain and suffering. So why should I resent my fellow creatures, victims too of like conditions? So Shantideva is speaking in a little bit different type of English, right? So it might be it's some kind of a little bit difficult to read maybe. But when he's talking about bile and humors, he's talking about our body. He's talking about our physical state. He said, basically, you could say, if I'm not getting angry with my anatomy, with my physiology, I don't get angry when I get a cold. I don't get angry when I hurt myself. Or maybe I do get angry. What he's saying is that you probably realize that in the end that's a wasted effort, right? If you have a headache, it's kind of silly to get angry at your nervous system for causing that headache, right? If you have a stomach ache, it's kind of silly to get angry at your stomach because you have a stomach ache. Now your brain, your nervous system and your digestive system, they're telling you something's wrong. Maybe you ate something that was bad for you. That's why you have a stomach ache. Maybe you have a headache. Maybe you get migraines, so you don't really know why you have headaches, but you have headaches and it's a symptom that something's wrong. That something's not working right. So you shouldn't get angry with that. I mean, usually after you initially get angry, but then you realize that what you really need to do is to kind of treat the symptom. Maybe you need to go lay down in a dark room if you're having a migraine. If you have an upset stomach, maybe you need to take an antacid or something. So Shannon Davis says, just like when our own body gets ill, we don't get angry at it. We seek to try and find some relief. So if we get angry with other beings, we should approach it the same way. Other beings like us are also experiencing the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Other beings like us are also experiencing the own changes in their body, and they get angry or they get upset if things happen in their body and make them feel ill. Shanadeva would say that in the ultimate view, we are all part of one body. Okay? Even though we perceive ourselves as separate individuals, we are really all part of one larger consciousness. So when that other person is ill and suffering, and maybe that suffering causes us to be angry, a better way to approach that would be to think, what is going on with this person that's causing them to suffer so much that suffering is kind of spilling over to me? Is there anything I can do in this moment to provide them with some relief? So that's not an easy thing to do, right? If someone's doing something that you disagree with, is making you angry, it's hard to suddenly look at things from their point of view and try and see what is making them upset or why they're doing things that are causing you to have discomfort. And maybe we're not going to be able to do that, in many of the situations. Just like when we ourselves have some type of sickness, sometimes we can treat it and sometimes we can't. Sometimes when we're ill, we have to go to the doctor, we have to go to the ER, and we have to get some special treatments from a specialist, and it takes a long time to heal. Sometimes when other people are doing things and are suffering, it's outside of our abilities to bring compassion to them, to cure them of their suffering or to relieve them of their suffering. But even in those cases, what we can do is not get angry at them, not make things worse, because we know that when someone is doing something that we don't like and we get angry at them, we try and we make them uncomfortable, then it just makes things worse. It increases their suffering. So that can be like a bitter pill to swallow, right? That whenever someone does something that's making me angry, really my job is to kind of bring them compassion and not get angry at them. You might think about, what about their responsibility? What about them not getting, causing me suffering? Don't they have any responsibility themselves to not create problems for me, create harm for me? Why do I have to be responsible for everyone else who makes me angry? So the next verse has to do with that. If those who are like wanton children are by nature prone to injure others, what point is there in being angry, like resenting fire for its heat? So the word wanton here means like, children who are just being bad because it's fun. Like someone is causing hurt or suffering to you because they want to, So if we're looking at this from Shanadeva's perspective here, we would say maybe some people are acting this way on purpose. They're trying to push our buttons and make us upset. They're trying to make us angry. And so we have to ask ourselves, why would they be doing that? And since as Buddhists, we don't believe that people are bad or good, we think that people are the results of causes and conditions. We would need to ask ourselves, what causes and conditions cause this person to be acting this way? So in counseling services, we learn about different things that happen to you in your childhood that can create problems for you later in life when you try and cope with difficulties. You know, if you grow up in poverty, if you have parents that aren't very loving, if you don't have any role models, if you have a poor education, if you have a poor diet, all these things can affect how you're able to cope with problems later in life. So some people grow up in these situations where they not really have the benefit of creating good coping skills. So when it's easy for them to get overwhelmed in life, and when they get overwhelmed, then they lash out, right? So it's not like they're choosing to be this way. You know, this is a result of causes and conditions that happen to them for their, 20 years of life. So Shanadeva's instructions for us, for people that maybe we seem like their habitual way of coping with life is to create suffering for others, it's to say that we shouldn't get angry, because just like we know that a fire is hot and we don't get angry if we touch it and get burned, like if we know these people are going to act that way, then we should expect that, and we shouldn't get angry at them for that. We should just treat them appropriately. Maybe there are certain people in your life that cause you a lot of suffering, cause you a lot of anger, and so you need to be more cautious when you interact with them. Maybe you may need to limit your interactions with them. Some people can be so stressful to us that we can't have any interaction with them at all. So just like, when you have a hot pot in the oven, you don't grab it with your naked hand, because you'll get burned. When you have certain relationships in your life, you have to be careful, and you have to be cautious, and you have to be mindful. I talked earlier about this idea that we're all part of one body. Okay? So if we're all part of one body, we still want to somehow provide compassionate care to these people who are suffering so greatly. Well, even though we want to provide compassion to these people, if we think about this idea of the body, there are some illnesses that we have in the body that we have to really take drastic actions in order to keep the body safe. I'm in hospice, and I had a patient with gangrene. I've had a couple patients with gangrene. And gangrene is an infection that grows, and if you don't amputate the part of the body when it's early, it can kill the person. Even if it just starts as an infection on the toe, it can take over the whole toe, it can take over the whole foot, and eventually the person will die. Sometimes people are in such poor health when they get gangrene, they can't do any amputation, so they end up just dying from that. And sometimes, there are people in the world that are so ill, suffering so much, we really have to kind of separate them from society to provide them the kind of support that they need. If we just kind of ignore their behavior, it's going to cause a lot of harm for those that are around them. Another way to think about this, maybe a little bit less radical, is to think about this idea is if you break a bone in your body, like if you break your finger or your arm, and then you put a cast on to immobilize it, until it's healing. Sometimes we can think about, under best circumstances, sometimes people who have maybe addiction or substance abuse issues, going into a rehab place, getting them out of the area where they're getting the influences, providing them with a lot of targeted treatment, they can overcome that suffering, but they do need to have that space to kind of heal and to be separate. So sometimes, people we interact with, they need that space, in order to, and it's not about us, not holding them responsible for their actions, but just recognizing that they need certain causes and conditions kind of be able to overcome those things. So my next quote from Shantideva has to do with the idea that maybe the other side of the coin. And if their faults are fleeting and contingent, if living beings are by nature wholesome, it is likewise senseless to resent them, as well as be angry at the sky for having clouds. So if we just assume that, this person that we're interacting with is making us angry right now, but this is normally we get along fine with them. maybe this one particular issue, this political topic we can't really talk about because, we both get so revved up about it. In general, this person, we agree on lots of things. We get along fine. There's no anger in the relationship. But just this one little thing we can't be talked about. We can't talk about immigration, or we can't talk about poverty or something like that. Shantideva says, in this case, it's useless to get angry. Might as well get angry at the sky for having clouds. So we can think of our emotions as like weather patterns going across our mind. Sometimes we're angry, sometimes we're upset, sometimes we're loving, sometimes we're jealous. And these things just kind of go through. And if we hold on to them, we can maintain it for a long time. Sometimes we're angry, but if we don't attach to it, we just kind of notice and let it go, then it's just like, blows away, blows through. Sometimes that might take a lot of time. But if we assume that beings, the person we're interacting with is generally not making us angry, this is a specific circumstance, what's the point of getting angry? It's going to pass through. We can change the subject. We can talk about something else. That's the idea there. So this next group of verses have to do with how do we think about people we don't get along with when they're not there? How do we, sometimes, we can kind of increase our anger at somebody, because we talk about them when they're not there. We get someone else who also angry at them. We share it together and we kind of get things up there. So he says, Shantideva says, if unhappiness befalls your enemy, why should this be a cause for your rejoicing? The wishes of your mind alone would not, in fact, contrive his injury. So he's saying there that, if someone we dislike has an injury, gets hurt, something bad happens to them, that just because we thought that something bad should happen to them didn't make it happen. Despite what we see on Stranger Things, our thoughts don't have that kind of control in the world. So we shouldn't rejoice, when something bad happens, because we're not the cause. And then the second part of that is, and if your hostile wishes were to bring them harm, again, what cause of joy is that to you? Why then should I be satisfied? Are these your thoughts? Is anything more ruinous than that? So here, if we could, wish harm upon someone else, how ruinous is that? Think about our Bodhisattva vow is to wish compassion for all beings. So even though it even applies to people we don't like or people we get angry at. So just thinking about someone, and then if something bad happens to them and we feel self-righteous, like, see, he's saying, that is the worst. That's even worse, because here we are, we're supposed to be thinking compassionate thoughts for all beings, but we're holding those compassionate thoughts only for people we like or people we get along with. We're not expanding that compassion to people that we're angry with or disagree with. So I want to go back to the idea of the ultimate view. Human beings are all part of one body. Think about, your own body. How ridiculous would it be for you to, wish harm on your own body? Wish that you break something, or wish that you had a stomach ache, or you hear something bad, so you wish you would go deaf. That just seems crazy, to wish that kind of harm on your own body. So think about that. If you can consider that all beings are part of yourself, to wish harm on all beings is just going to cause more problems for yourself. What do they say? Don't cut your nose off to spite your face. You're going to create more difficulties for yourselves. So I want to end the talk with a couple more quotes here. And these have to do with this idea of why we should celebrate or why we should treasure all beings. A share in bringing forth the supreme state of Buddhahood is thus possessed by everyone. This demonstrates the reason why they are all the proper object of my reverence. So this idea that all people have Buddha nature, all people have this ability to be enlightened, and all people have a role in actually making that happen. And so if we wish harm or get angry at someone else, we're preventing that from happening. We should be trying to think about, how do we provide compassion to someone, even if we're angry at them, even if we disagree with them, that's going to help them come towards enlightenment, And again, it's the same thing, right from the beginning, it may not be within our power. It may be only something that we can feel in our head. Like, oh, this person, they're really making me angry. I wish they could get some relief. I wish they weren't, so upset, and lashing out. And maybe all we can do is just feel that way and not get angry at them and add to their suffering. Shanadeva goes on to say, the great compassionate lords consider as their own all wanderers. Of this there is no doubt. Beings then are Buddha's very self. Thus, how can I not treat them with respect? So when he said the great compassionate lords, he means all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all the teachers, all the venerable masters, everyone who's spreading the Dharma. And he says, consider as their own all wanderers. When he says all wanderers, he means all of us, all beings, with no exceptions. It doesn't matter where somebody is on the political spectrum. The Buddha is saying they are part of Buddha nature. They are included in that Bodhisattva vow to relief of suffering for all beings. And they go on further to say that these beings are Buddha's very self. Thus, how can I not treat them with respect? So it's not just that they have the potential to be Buddhas. They are Buddhas already. They may not be acting that way. They may not realize it, but they are. So that's the point. So thank you very much. We're going to prepare ourselves for meditation. So if you could get yourself in a comfortable posture, you can put your feet, you can be up on your knees, or you can have your knees folded in front of you. If you can put your knees up in the lotus position, that's a very stable way to sit. Try and sit with your back nice and straight. You can put your right hand inside your left hand, pull it up against your abdomen. That helps to pull your shoulders back. You're going to tuck your chin in a little bit. Have your eyes partially open, looking down 45 degrees. If you feel yourself really distracted, you can close your eyes. If you feel yourself very sleepy, just open your eyes wider. You can have like an unfocused gaze. Put your tongue at the roof of your mouth, roof of your top of your mouth. And start out just by bringing awareness to your breathing. There might be aware of your breathing in your nostrils and in your mouth. It might be in your abdomen. But wherever it's comfortable for you to be aware of your breathing, just kind of be aware of that in-breath and then the out-breath. If you're feeling, if that's not enough to hold on to, you can count your breaths. So you breathe in and breathe out and say silently to yourself 5. Breathe in, breathe out 4. Go down to 1 and then start over. And then once you get comfortable doing that, you can just kind of let that go and just kind of be aware. Now we'll chime the bowl at the start. So when I was sitting up here, and I know that some people, have some discomfort with meditation, right? You're trying to, after you sit for a little bit, your legs start to get sore and your knees start to get sore. Maybe your back gets sore. You have to stretch. How many of you got angry with your body, or got angry with that body part because it was sore? Or did you just try and, bring it some comfort? Try and stretch it out, or try and reposition, or try and ignore it. There's all these things we do with meditation have to do with, dealing with discomfort. We can think about anytime somebody is making us angry, they're just making us uncomfortable. So if we can think about how to bring some comfort to that situation without making it worse, which usually means not responding in anger. Just like if our leg is bothering us in meditation, we don't treat that by hitting our leg, and making it hurt more, or trying to get it into tighter so it hurts more. You try and loosen things up. So just made me think about that when we were doing our meditating. We were trying to repossession to get comfortable. So the next part of the service is joys and concerns. So this is our opportunity to experience the four immeasurables. I recently read in the Buddha by Karen Armstrong that when the Buddha, her interpretation of the Buddha's enlightenment meditation, the meditation he was meditating in when he became enlightened, was he was meditating on loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, the four immeasurables. So when we're doing this sharing in the four immeasurables, we're sharing in the Buddha's enlightenment in that way. And the four immeasurables are loving kindness, the wish that other beings are happy, compassion, the wish that other beings have relief from their suffering, sympathetic joy, our ability to share in the happiness of others, and then equanimity, our ability to maintain a more constant or regulated state and not become really angry just because somebody does something that upsets us, not to become completely depressed because something bad happens, not become, so happy that we, aren't aware of our surroundings anymore and maybe do something foolish, just kind of being more aware of our emotions. Not that we can't experience them, but we experience them with mindfulness so that we can act appropriately. And just because we're experiencing extreme emotion doesn't mean we have to go around causing a lot of discomfort or harm to other people. So, if you have a joy or concern you would like to share with the Sangha, just please raise your hand.
Hi, I'm doing my weekly Ben update. Woohoo. He was discharged from the hospital on Thursday. Yeah. I know you can hear that, Ben. He always watches. But he is still at less than 100 days since transplant. So it's still a dicey situation because the immune system is not up and running at 100%. So, really keeping our fingers crossed for that. He is on Caring Bridge if anyone would like to communicate with him. His name is Ben Rudy, which is not really his last name, but it's full of consonants. So he just goes with Rudy. And his most recent entry, at the end of it, he said, this is the essence of Ben. He said, this is my path, no matter what it looks like. It's mine. That's Ben. So still hold space for that guy. He's coming along.
I'll share one. I just got back yesterday from Richmond, Virginia. That's it's a city that's where I went to graduate school, and I met my wife there, and we got married there, and our first child was there, and we had our first house there. So I had all these rich memories, and we haven't been back there. And well, we went back there earlier this year, but we haven't lived there for 17 years. So it's really cool to go back and see old friends and visit areas and learn new areas and stuff. It was just a lot of fun. A lot of driving to get there. It's like 13 hours from here, but and it's hot there too. It's really hot there, but it was a joyous visit. Thank you.
Hi, I want to share. My son came to visit me, so I'm so happy. These are 2 weeks that really a joy in my life. And I have concern like for all people that live in war zones. So I wish all this would end up.
Actually, I have one online. Ben says, I am home from the hospital and alive. Thank you, Sangha, for keeping me in mind the last 4 weeks. I will be with you in person when I can. Love you all.
All right. So we'll take a moment to hold those joys and concerns in our heart. So some temple-related announcements. We have an online meditation group that meets on Wednesdays from 6 to 6:45. Reverend Shin Kyu has been leading it during the summer, and you saw a virtual Dharma talk, Reverend Shin Kyu, last week. So if you'd like to join that, all you have to do is drop in. Just follow the link that's in the newsletter and on the website. You don't need to make any schedule, register or anything like that. Just come on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. We also have the Avantamsaka Sutra study group. It's on Thursdays, and it's usually twice a month. And the 22nd is the next one. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. here at the temple. And you can contact Will Allington or Reverend Joyce and Sue Shane Weimer about more information. There's also information in the newsletter. We also have a Thursday Dharma discussion group that's starting at the end of the month. Do you know the day that starts? The 29th. And that's here at the temple. It's from 9 to 11. They're studying.
We are
Thich Nhat Hanh.
reading The Art of Living.
Okay. Yep. And you don't need to read it before you come. They actually read the selections they're going to discuss actually at the meeting. So that's from 9 to 11 a.m. here at the temple. We have the 5 Buddhist trainings coming up. And so that's the precept class. It starts in September. September 8th is the first class. You can sign up online. So the precepts is, after you've taken the Introduction to Meditation class, we recommend you take the 5 Buddhist precept class. And the precept class, you learn the basics of how the temple operates. You learn about how to set up for the temple services. We discuss the 5 precepts, which are, not to harm other beings, not to steal from other beings, to tell the truth, to not engage in sexual misconduct, to not indulge in intoxicants. And we talk about those in a lot of detail and talk about how you can bring those strategies into your life so that you can, the idea is that the unskillful actions in our life can become a real barrier to meditation. So if we can develop a more skillful relationship with people and with things in our life, then it's going to make our meditation much more easy. And the meditation really helps us to develop the clarity of mind that we need so that when someone does things to push our buttons, they don't get pushed. We don't get angry, we don't get overwhelmed, we don't yell and scream. We don't do things that we later regret. We have to build on that with our meditation. So I encourage you to sign up for the 5 Buddhist precepts. That's the class goes from September till the end of November, beginning of December. And at the end of the class, you receive a Dharma name. You notice some of the people here have Dharma names. And also you're invited to start wearing the temple grays and to be more involved in activities such as, we accept volunteers for everything, but a part of the precept class is getting training to be a greeter, getting training to be an incense lighter, getting training to how to set the temple up in the mornings, training on how to do prostration, more training on meditation, history on the temple. It's very, very broad and encompassing. So if you really want to deepen your practice, learn more about the temple, become more involved, develop your spiritual practice, I encourage you to take part in the preceptor training. It is a pretty significant commitment, because you're going to commit to coming to temple service every Sunday. You're going to commit to coming early to help set up, to participate in a little lecture before the actual morning bell, so like from 9 to 9:20. And then every other week, commit to sitting here for an hour and talking with the other preceptors about how your practice is going and sharing. And then as well, there's also some readings that go with that. So it's a lot. Yes, please.
When you were saying all the things that you learned in the preceptor class, all of those things are really awesome and they're important. They're good things to learn. They're fun to learn. It occurred to me maybe the most rewarding part of the preceptor class for myself, and I've heard others talk about it, is deepening your connection to your classmates. The class itself, the people that you sit with, and that you learn these things with, really grow connection with these people. And it's one of the most rewarding parts of this class. It's a great thing to be a part of.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So what I wanted to announce that we do have the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple board meeting. That is today from 11:30 to 1. So tea time will be shortened, so that tea time will have to end, before that meeting starts. So tea time will probably go till 11:25. If you're interested in observing the board meeting, we invite you to do that. In order to be a board member, you do have to have taken the 5 precepts here at the temple. We also have Buddhist recovery meetings, Mondays 6:30, meditation 7 p.m. meeting at the temple. Wednesday 6:30 at the Alano Club on 1020 College Avenue. Fridays 10:05 a.m. meditation 10:30 meeting at Garfield Park, as long as the weather's permitting, and also available on Zoom. And then do we have another announcement? Okay, so the other announcement I wanted to do is the Dana announcement. So everyone at this temple is a volunteer. All the teachers are volunteers. All the setup, bathroom cleaning, board members, the other Dharma teachers were all volunteers. No one's paid for any of their time or effort they're putting into the temple. So the way we pay the bills here is that people donate their funds. The way we keep things running, keep things clean, is people donate their time. There's Dana boxes at the front entrance and rear entrance of the temple. We encourage you to make donations as you're able to, and we encourage you to come early. Right now we come at 9 o'clock to set up. When the preceptors come in, they'll be coming in at 8:30 to set up. But we also, we're always looking for volunteers to help out with potlucks, to help out with the tech team there. And just wanted to thank all the people that helped out today with our greeters, our incense lighters, Nasaskar here up on this dais, all the people that came to set up this morning, clean the bathrooms, empty the trash, all those things. So thank you so much. At this time, we'll all stand and we'll say the closing gathas.
Skillful actions, never committed by my sense of whole. On account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, Lord of my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. Vast as the road of compassion, a formless field of benefaction, I wear the Buddha's teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passion, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain.
As you're cleaning up, please put all your handouts back into the front of the chancel, and then there'll be someone going around to take the chancel from you. Please try and straighten your cushion up on the middle of your There's actually the small circle one. Hit that in the center. Make sure it looks nice and clean there, that area. And straighten things around. We will have a tea hour downstairs.